Hi, I'm Angela. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Staying Safe and Healthy during COVID-19. This is our live program. We call it We're in it together. We're in this together. As I said, I'm Angela. I work with the Red Cross in the Caribbean, and we spend every week talking to different national societies and different people about ways and tips and tricks they have for staying safe and healthy, or how they're reaching people to try and spread good information, because we know good information is a great way to slow the spread of COVID-19. So joining me to talk about this today from the Guyana Red Cross is Andrea. Thanks so much for joining us. Andrea, tell me a little bit about what you're doing, what your role is with Guyana Red Cross.
Hi, everyone. Andrea Phillips from Guyana Red Cross. I'm currently the project manager for the COVID-19 response in Guyana, which means my role basically is to coordinate every response that's being carried out by the Guyana Red Cross Society currently.
All right. So when we talk about COVID-19 in Guyana, what kind of situation are we looking at? Like how are people understanding it? How are people getting sick? What's the sort of overview?
At this point, we're seeing a steady increase of COVID-19 cases in Guyana, at approximately 30 persons per day. We have also seen persons not necessarily taking their precautions. So one of the key roles for Guyana Red Cross right now is risk communication, where we're trying to encourage persons to take the necessary precaution. And a lot of our information is around risk communication, ensuring persons change their behavior in trying to take the necessary steps to protect themselves.
And you've been doing that sort of all across the country. I've got some special cases I want to bring up, but just some generic ways. What kind of things do you do to try and get people to hear those messages? And who do you tell this to?
Okay, so one of the main things that we have done currently, we have started to print posters. But what we have found is the face-to-face interaction and the demonstration is very key. So it's not enough to just share posters. It's not enough to just put information out there. You need to engage with persons, which also is a risk for us. But we do take our necessary precautions and follow what we need to do. But then it's also the role of the National Society to ensure that we get the information out there to work with persons. What we have found that we've been able to engage with persons on a face-to-face level, demonstrate to them how to use their face mask, how to use it correctly. Because what we see is a lot of persons are wearing their mask, but sometimes they're wearing it on their chin or on their forehead, not on their face correctly, or they're pulling it down and then they're pulling it back up. And persons are not realizing that they can cause themselves to be infected like that because you have exposed area. Those are some of the key things that we are trying to address with persons. Also, the importance of continuously washing your hands. If you have no option, which is what we promote, then you use a hand sanitizer. But as long as we have access to soap and water, we encourage persons to continuously keep washing their hands and try to take all the other necessary steps that they can take.
And just when you were saying about talking to people face to face, that probably offers them the opportunity to ask questions, to double check that they're doing it right. Do you find that?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. What we have found, a lot of persons, especially when we talk about the face mask and pulling it down and pulling it up, when we speak to persons and actually show them that you can cause yourself to be infected, like the person is like, really? Just because they didn't really think about the whole aspect of what COVID-19 is and how it can affect you. Persons were just being told wear a mask, but persons are not realizing why you should wear a mask and how you should wear a mask correctly. So it's important to just not tell persons to do something. It's very important to tell them why, or to encourage them to understand why is it that they're being asked or being suggested for you to do this, as opposed to just asking them to do this without any sort of explanation.
And so now that you're saying the why is very important, do you want to quickly give our audience a reminder as to why wearing a mask is important and why washing hands is important?
Well, of course, wearing a mask is important because it's one of the steps to protecting yourself from COVID-19. Of course, you want to add that with social distancing. So you have the three main steps that you want to make sure you take, which is always washing your hands, which you should also do before you put on a face mask. So you wash your hands continuously, then you put on a face mask and you put it on correctly. Depending on the type of face mask, you know how to put it on, and you also take it off correctly. So it's not just pulling it off or pulling it down. You want to take it off from the elastic and then you put it in the bin and dispose of it. And you ensure that once you're having a conversation with somebody, you stay a safe distance, which is usually 2 meters away from the person. Because what happens when we speak, sometimes we spray. So what happens is when that spray comes out, is that's what we inhale or can get into our eyes. So the distance away allows it not to travel that far. The mask as well too allows yourself and the other person to protect themselves and protect you. So mask is not only for you, it's also for the other person as well.
That's perfect. That's really good reminders. Thank you. Now, I know you guys aren't just doing this, you know, near where your Red Cross is located. You're spreading out across the country. I want to share a picture here. I'm pretty sure this is you in a boat. So
yes, it is.
I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to the different areas in the country you're reaching and how you're getting there and why you're getting out there.
So Guyana is a very large country. We have a small population, but we have a very large country. It's a mainland, and we have a lot of forested and interior location. So the area where that picture was taken was in Region 7, Bartica, in a community called Batavia. That community is a riverine community. The community also, their main economic activity are their boat captains. So farther down the river, it's an interior location where they do gold mining, but it's a riverine area. So in order to get to that area, you need boat captains that know the channels that they can take. So persons usually have to call to that community and ask boat captains to take them to the particular locations. They wouldn't be able to go by themselves. So the majority of the village, their entire household, most persons usually do boat captain work where they take persons. Now, that's how the community spread began, because the area where persons were going to gold mining had a very large population of persons that were affected by COVID-19. So as a result of the boat captain taking persons there and bringing them back out, the persons then became infected. We were approached by the Tushao and the village council to spread information and to share face masks and hygiene items with the community, because it was indicated that the community was not exposed to any of the information. Because of COVID-19 and the precautions that's necessary, and the addition to the fact that it's a riverine community, it was decided between ourselves and the village council, which was mainly a suggestion by the village council, which is very important to engage with the persons that you're working with to get information from them as the best way to work with the community. They suggested we use a boat. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a speaker, an amplifier, and there was a mic that I was using as well too. So we had this boat. It was just going along the river, and you were calling out to persons to come down to their landing and to come down to the different areas where they were. We spoke to some persons who used mic because of how far they were. Others, as you can see, they came down closer. The persons that came down closer, we had an opportunity to actually engage in a conversation with them. So as we shared the information with them, they were able to ask questions and to clarify anything that they needed to. And they were very thankful for the information, because what we found is that not a lot of persons knew about COVID-19 and about the necessary precautions that they need to take to protect themselves.
Wow. How many, I mean, just ballpark, how many people do you think you were able to talk to and reach that way?
On an average, I think I spoke to about 85 persons that day.
And if they're the central points that you can go and talk to everybody, I feel like they're really great people to get the information going in the right direction.
Correct. One of the things that we have found, especially with the indigenous communities, they're very close-knit. They look out for each other. So as long as you share information here, as long as you share something here, before you know it, it's going to be all over the village. So you have to remember, if we do something at one spot, make sure you do it in the other spot as well, because sometimes persons feel left out.
That's really, really great to hear. And I mean, you're doing more than that as well. I've seen pictures of your teams chatting with people on roads too, in shops, and I think I saw someone talking to a bunch of people on motorcycles. Can you tell me a little bit about those activities?
What we have decided to do, again, as I said, is to be able to reach persons and reach them with the information. And as long as we have the opportunity to reach people, we take that chance. So we may see persons walking along the road, somebody may be traveling along the road on the bike, and you flag them down and ask them for a few minutes. Now, some of those pictures that you saw, where we went into a few other mining communities, and it's where we call a landing area, where persons travel through to get from one point to the other. And it's usually a high traffic area where you have a lot of persons passing through. So what we did was we went out there and we sat and we waited and we spoke to persons as they came through, whether they were on their bikes or in the car, shared information, we shared face masks, and we also did hand washing demonstrations with them.
I think I have some of those pictures too. Let me see if I can share those as well. Sorry for my delay on that. That should do it. Can you see some of those?
Yes, yes. This was in the community of Itabali.
Perfect. And I've got a couple here. So really just handing, like you were saying, handing out masks.
Yes. So what we did was we engaged with the person, shared the information with them. Then we gave them the face mask, demonstrated to them how to use it correctly. And we also did hand washing demonstration.
That's great. And you were saying you were hearing back from people. Were they familiar with that the Red Cross was doing these things? Was this their first sort of interaction with Red Cross?
For some areas, it was the first interaction. For others, it was just us doing a different activity, but they were aware of the fact that Red Cross would be working in different areas.
That's great. And as you look towards, lessons learned from this trip, what are you looking towards in the future? What are you sort of thinking will work? Are you going to continue work like this? Because as you were saying, it probably took a lot to coordinate.
Definitely, we would like to continue working like this. As I said, we have found that for Guyana, the face-to-face interaction and being able to reach persons. Now, these locations are far out locations. They're interior locations. They're small communities that are not usually reached by persons. Or if they are reached by persons, they're reached either through television or radio. And it seems as though it may just be a one-way communication. What we found is that being able to engage with persons, because persons had questions, and they didn't have anybody to answer those questions. So for us to be able to engage with them and to answer those questions, it gives clarity to what they should or should not do, or how they should take the necessary precautions to move forward.
That's great. That's great. Anything else to add on your response at this point, or any lessons learned from sharing information from a boat that you want to share at this point?
What I would say, a lot of persons are reacting very much to the use of the face masks that we have found and the correct use of it. We have found that when we explain to persons why you should not be having it all over your face as opposed to just on your face there, it was more like an ah moment. So we found that that is something that should be much more clarified. And it's always important to try your best to follow all your necessary precautions. You have the three main ones that you should always follow. Wash your hands as often as you can with soap and water for 20 minutes. Ensure that you use your face mask if you must go out, and if you must engage with somebody, stay your safe distance away. And if you do not have to go out, please stay home and try to stay safe.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Andrea.
Thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful. And for all of you watching, as always, if you have questions or comments or things you want to see, you can leave them in the comments below, or if you're on Facebook, leave us a message. On Twitter, please communicate with us, because like Andrea was saying, as much as it helps her with the work she does to hear back from you, it helps me as well. I want to make sure that the information you're getting from us is helping you with the questions you have or clarifications of things you're hearing. So again, Andrea, thank you very much. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.